Today I'm going to keep security within the context of collaboration. Why do we care about security when it comes to collaboration? It was talked about before. The communications, voice, video, or messaging that can happen over collaboration are as confidential, or can be as confidential as data going over data lines, right? So it's important we keep that confidentiality level. We keep the integrity, right, to make sure that you have a good, solid connection, and availability, right, to make sure it's always available no matter where you are. So some of the components we talk about in collaboration here, just as a review, the WebEx components, right? So Cisco components, maybe phone, meetings, messaging, your collaboration services, CUCM, CUC, CCX, IMP. See, I should have asked you guys with those guys. And WebEx Contact Center. The Cisco collaboration endpoints, the Cisco IP phones, the desk series, the board series, and the room series. And or the peripherals, maybe like a Cisco room navigation, and the network infrastructure. So these components all connect to the network somehow. They either connect to your on-premise collaboration components, or they go to the internet, or both. So we need to protect all of those methods of communication. And the network infrastructure, remember, you're plugging it in. These components are all, a lot of them are, when it boils down to it, it's just a computer, right? So you protect it like any other computer that you connect to the network. Okay. So the first solution is ISE Identity Services Engine. That covers the topic of AAA. Authentication, who and what are you? Authorization, where are you allowed to connect to? And accounting is, here's where you've been, okay? So Identity Services Engine facilitates that where you're connected secure wired or wireless or over VPN. Also, there is a concept called asset enforcement, where if a particular component cannot authenticate to a network, then ISE can profile that device to say, oh, you're a collaboration endpoint component, and give it just the right level of access by knowing what that device is that's profiling. Segmentation is, of course, keeping your voice and data separate from each other. And then your security ecosystem integrations and rapid threat containment we'll talk about here in the next couple of slides. For either your laptop that's running WebEx, or whatever the software that you might be running collaboration software on there, or for any of these components that are authenticating, including phones and devices. The most secure method is 802.1x. So 802.1x, you're logging in with either a username and password and or with a certificate, right? But that device has to be what's called 802.1x capable. It has to have a supplicant on there. A supplicant, supplicate is a medieval word. It means to beg for something. I beg to connect to the network. So an 802.1x supplicant is asking permission to connect to the network. Not everything has an 802.1x supplicant. More and more of the collaboration devices that I see nowadays do, however, so that is a good way to have good secure communication and connectivity to the network. But if that's not possible, then the next best method is MAC address bypass. And MAC address bypass is where the only credential it's passing is its MAC address. So now that's not the most secure. MAC addresses can be spoofed, but it is much better than nothing. So MAC address bypass is always an option as well. And then asset enforcement, I talked about that a bit before, is where the ISE and your network infrastructure can profile a device to know what type of devices are trying to connect to your network. And that can be augmented or added to 802.1x and or MAB for an additional level of security, just to make sure that only collaboration components are connecting to your network infrastructure. So as I'm flying through these, if anybody has any questions along the way, sing out, okay? Segmentation, we talked about that. That's to keep your voice and your data separate from each other. So authenticated endpoints can be assigned to a voice VLAN, if you have that, or they can be assigned an access list, like a downloadable access list that says, all right, this can only connect to these devices. Again, the intention is to keep your voice and your data traffic separate from each other. Alternatively from that, you can do what is called security group tagging. That is where endpoints and or components, when they authenticate to the network, are given a security tag with a name. So that just says, okay, so, and the tags you put into somewhat of a matrix to say what tags are all, or what security group tags are able to talk to other security group tags. It's a little more granular, and it's centrally managed right in ISE instead of having to manage it at any of your layer 3 divisions. Okay. Next, to shift to the next product, Cisco Secure Firewall. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. The evolution of the firewall goes way back. So basic functionality of any firewall is to protect outbound connectivity to the internet for your collaboration solutions. Also to protect inbound protection from the internet for your internet-facing collaboration components. Okay? And then provide remote access VPN if that is necessary. Also granular access control. Your Cisco Secure Firewall is going to provide high-level security, threat mitigation efficacy, and mitigate connectivity to malicious infrastructure. Okay, so that means what? If you have cloud components, there are bad places in the world you don't want to connect to if you're connected to the internet. And so the Cisco Secure Firewall knows, because of its security intelligence, that it ties in with Cisco Security Threat Intelligence Database. It knows where these malicious infrastructures are and can mitigate connectivity to that to keep you from connecting there in the first place. Your next generation features are contextual learning, meaning any traffic that comes to and from your network through the firewall, it learns your network, it learns what endpoints are on your network, what traffics they use, what softwares you run, what versions of each software that you run, and as such it has the ability to fine-tune dynamically your intrusion prevention rules to pertain only to the endpoints in the software that you have on your network. So again, think of this within the context of collaboration, any of the software you have, just to make sure it's all clean and there's no vulnerabilities. Security intelligence, I touched on that, is the ability to mitigate connectivity to global malicious infrastructures across the world. And then, again, the Cisco Secure Firewall is the highest method of overall threat mitigation. Compare that to a Meraki MX. Also can be at the internet edge, alternatively to a Cisco Secure Firewall. Have a lot of overlapping features, right? Still outbound protection for cloud-provided internet solutions and inbound protection for internet-facing collaboration solutions. Remote access VPN. Access control, maybe not as granular as your next generation firewall or your Cisco Secure Firewall. And it's got signature-based intrusion prevention compared to your next generation intrusion prevention that your Cisco Secure Firewall has. But the upsides are to the Meraki that the Cisco Secure Firewall doesn't have is you got a single pane of glass to manage all of your Meraki devices. And also it includes your Meraki MX. Has built-in, very easy to administer SD-WAN, software-defined WAN. So a lot of your path selection, traffic shaping, priority queuing, so quality of service to make sure that your voice and video traffic are prioritized over other traffic, right? So a bit of a trade-in to go with Meraki from Cisco Secure Firewall. The Cisco Secure Firewall, again, higher threat mitigation efficacy and security intelligence with learning. But with your Meraki, you get a little less of that, but you have your SD-WAN, which is very powerful indeed.